The rand trading around 7.14, so it's weakened a little bit from that 7 rand 5 it touched at earlier this week. But at the same time, we've had the euro firming above 131 against the dollar. So it looks like the rand and the euro have broken trend at this stage.
Morning, Stephen. Yes, you're right. I mean, the rand now appears to be in a bit of a retreat mode. We thought that it might test the 7 rand level this week, but it definitely doesn't seem like that's going to happen now. And as you mentioned, the euro definitely has continued to strengthen against the dollar. And I guess that's the thing with currencies. I mean, they don't always move in tandem, and certainly the rand and the euro relationship doesn't seem to be holding at the moment.
Of course, we've had the rand weakening a little bit against the British pound, also against the euro, as you mentioned. How's it performed with other emerging market currencies? Have they also been weakening? Because we did have that scare coming out of China earlier this week, where they looked like they were going to be raising the reserve requirements for banks. Has that spooked other emerging market currencies?
Yes, Stephen, we definitely saw some other emerging market currencies also weaken earlier this week when that news came out. But I think some of them have managed to retrace their steps at this point. And the rand is also not weakened as much as one might have expected in the wake of that news.
I also read on the wires that foreigners were net sellers of local bonds yesterday, with one international bank in particular cashing in its holding of local bonds, and that really follows the strong gains we've seen recently. Do you think that could have had an impact on the currency?
Well, absolutely, Stephen. I mean, it seems like there was a net outflow of about 2 billion rands yesterday. So there's no way that couldn't have affected the rand and probably played into rand weakness quite significantly.
Just looking at taking a look at data out last night, it was again mixed data out of the US. It looks like improving trends and unemployment claims, but the trade deficit widening, and it's really just a continuation of this picture we have been seeing on the data front.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. I mean, at the moment, US data is just sort of all over the place. And we saw the dollar barely reacted yesterday, even though weekly jobless claims fell to a near 2-month low. And that was largely because at the same time, there was news that FedEx is going to cut some jobs in its US headquarters. And FedEx is generally regarded as quite an important US company and a good indicator of the health of the US economy. So, you know, US data, as I said, is all over the place.
Of course, it's been a pretty quiet week in the local data front. Going into next week, I know we have the Fed meeting on Tuesday, and so perhaps the market looking for signs on quantitative easing from that. Also, our quarterly bulletin. What are you going to be looking for in that quarterly bulletin, and what sort of impact could that have on the currency market?
Well, Stephen, I mean, as far as the rand goes, we are always focused on what happened to the current account and what happened to the trade deficit in the quarter. We're expecting that the current account probably continue to widen, and we'd be looking, as far as the trade balance is concerned, be looking to see for any evidence that the rand hampered exports in the quarter.
And from that US Fed, is that going to be key for the currency markets going into the new week?
No, absolutely, Stephen. I mean, we're not expecting, there's very little data out today, so we're expecting that the rand is probably just going to consolidate around current levels headed into the weekend. And a big part of that is because people are waiting for the quarterly bulletin out on Tuesday, and as you mentioned, the Federal Reserve's meeting is also next week, and there's been mounting speculation in the market that the Fed could look to boost its asset purchase program. So I think those are the key events that people are waiting for at this point.